Well, it's finally here, the seventh continent from Serious Poulp, an adventure game which they report can take about 1,000 hours to play through, because it's a bit like a choose-your-own-adventure novel with lots of little cards which create a map that evolves as you explore this mysterious continent, which you've returned to as an adventurer to try and lift a curse from you, which you got the last time you were there. Why you'd go back to a strange place like that is full of evil if it cursed you the first time, I don't know. I'll probably stay away myself, but that's the premise of the game. And I've been waiting for this one probably since last November. I mean, that was the original shipping time that they quoted. I never expected that to be hit because of the sheer amount of artwork and the complexity of the game. But I had hoped it might hit the Easter time frame. But never mind. It's finally turned up. And I'm quite excited by this because I got some of the additional things with the Kickstarter. Some of the weather expansion, which has kind of these little card tiles which look a little bit like the weather in Merchants and Marauders. These cardboard weather effects which you stick on a plastic plinth, lifts it up. I got some of the mini kind of expansion stuff thrown in. I also got the 3 expansion packs which are exclusive to the Kickstarter, at least one of them is. The others will be out at retail eventually. And the Devourer's Monster Pack, which looks really cool. But I'm not sure it's going to be enough space to do any kind of unboxing here because there's not really a lot of room. I mean, you can just about get a sense of the size of this thing. It's absolutely huge. It's got this lovely embossed gold box, which I think is meant to be an exclusive. You've got the various kind of expansion packs, and my coffee table, frankly, doesn't look like it's going to be anywhere near big enough for this thing. So I think it's probably best if we take this thing and have a quick jaunt upstairs with it and then unbox it there. Cool. So here we go. It's been a long time coming, this game, and it feels like a well-earned reward for losing a stone over the last month. So that's the cellophane wrapper removed from the main box. And let's take a look now at what is inside. So, got a nice solid box. Wow, what are you doing in there? You're definitely not one of the expansions of that. Come on, get out. And inside we have what look like character tokens. We've got some fire, cardboard. I guess this is because in the Kickstarter campaign you get some miniatures for the characters, but in the kind of commercial release, if it ever gets one, I think they're intending to use cardboard tokens and standees. So I think they've given those to us as well, which is great. Got some kind of action boards which kind of take us through the things you can do in the game, and they're all made from a very nice, solid cardboard stock. Not the thickest perhaps, but certainly not flimsy card that you might find in something like a Fantasy Flight game. So that's quite nice. And then there's also a what looks like the card holder for 7th Continent. We'll punch that out later. That's, so you can draw tiles. I think that's for your discard deck. Yeah, it says there, look, on the discard pile. Tells you that this is for keeping your discarded player cards, because this game is controlled using a hand of action cards, and that's where the kind of the risk reward mechanic kicks in, because whilst you're burning through your action cards, they also function as your life force, your energy. So if you go through them too quickly, you run the risk of dying and losing the game. There's a nice little backer letter just thanking people. Dear backer, explorer, curse victim, if you're reading this, then somehow miraculously a dream that was born in the head of 2 young kids has finally reached its conclusion. The 7th Continent has been decades in the making, an idea so far-fetched that we never honestly thought we'd ever get to it. And we never would have if it wasn't for your help and the support of the entire Kickstarter community that helped us produce a game that we are immensely proud to call ours and yours. We simply could not have done this without you. There have, of course, been issues along the way. Projects like this are never without their flaws, but with your encouragement and backing, we can truthfully say that not only have we overcome them, and the game has improved notably thanks to the community's intervention. Over the course of many months spent developing, rereading and fine-tuning the game, we even devised a few ideas for the future, and we're happy to announce that these ideas will once again take on physical form somewhere around this autumn. What exactly? Well, let's just say you better not be claustrophobic or acrophobic and leave it at that. On behalf of everyone that worked on this project, we'd like to thank you for believing in us and our dream, Ludovic and Bruno. So that's a nice thank you letter, and it's even in French as well, which is a nice touch. So they've considered both of their main audiences for the game. Got a good solid rule book on A4, nice little rules reference for the icons on the back. That's a nice touch. And then we have the meat of the game, which is of course the cards, which make up the storage. And it's got some nice solid cardboard storage trays. Let's see if I can take some of these out for you to have a look at. There's a magnifying glass to look more closely at the individual cards. We've got some really quite tiny dice. I'm wondering if I should have upgraded those to the bone dice. That was one of the Kickstarter options, but you know, dice are dice, who cares? Standees, and what looks like a tray of the miniatures for the game. I don't know how well you can see the kind of the detailing of these models, but they are, I mean, as a reference point you can see that's my wedding ring there, and there's my thumb. So these are incredibly tiny little things. Got some foam, good solid foam stock there just for keeping the cards organised, and then we've got the actual card dividers themselves, which help you to keep the game organised, which is a really good idea. So that is a great way for keeping the game set up, ready to go at a moment's notice. And it also means it's much easier with these dividers to find the numbered cards that you're looking for, because there are a huge number of them in the game, and that's not included in the expansion content. So that is the base game. I'm going to take a look at the expansions a little bit later on, once I get this lot out of their cellophane wrappers, and we'll take a quick look at the cards themselves. Each of the packets of cards is clearly numbered to show you which order they should go in, and they are sealed very simply using a bit of cellophane tearaway strip, which allows you to get into them and remove the packaging without too much effort. Now I'm not going to go through too many of these because I don't want to spoil this for anyone, but the card stock, they're quite thin. It could have been a bit thicker, but they're well made, they're a good size, and they're already clearly sorted into numerical order. So it's just a case of unboxing them and transferring them into the respective file dividers, which is a nice touch. So it saves you unpackaging the game and accidentally spoiling parts of the story yourself, which is a great thing. I'm going to show you the back of the first one. So we've got one of the meat cards, crustacean. So this is for feeding your character. Got a few of those. Yeah, so these are the kinds of things you can find during the course of the adventure. So these look to be all the food cards. So you can see now that I've unboxed all of the cards. I seem to be missing some of the numbered ones, but I'm imagining that might be because they're contained in the expansions in here, so it might be that those get filled in later on. So I've currently got the foam dividers in there just to keep things tidy and organised. I've got the save thing set up there. I'm not going to show you too many of the cards because I want to kind of keep this as a surprise for all of you really who are getting the game. So we've got some of the character cards. We've got one Ferdinand, we've got Elliot, Dimitri, Keelan, Howard P. Lovecraft. We've got a bit of a H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu call out, Mary Kingsley, Victor Frankenstein. So the model I saw was indeed Frankenstein with his trench coat. And then what's a nice touch, we've got some blank cards to create your own explorer, which is really cool. And then you've got specific cards which go with the action decks for those respective characters to reflect their own distinctive skill sets. So you know, you've got cards which are related to monsters and controlling and experiments for Frankenstein. You've got cards which are more to do with exploration and survival for some of the others. And the idea is to try and make each experience different, I guess, to make every playthrough have its own distinctive flavour, which is a nice touch. So we've got the scarred fighter character who's got bamboo armour. That was what I saw in his model earlier, and he's got a lot more aggressive stuff. There it is, there's the bamboo armour. And then of course we've got the curse cards which go into the deck, and that essentially means game over. So we've got the curse, the dark chest of the damned, with a really cool skeletal cadaver on the front. We've got text relating to them: an offering to the guardians, the bloody hunt, the voracious goddess, and this is the one which is recommended that you start with in the manual, but I'm going to have a flick through them and decide what I want to play later on. I'm going to unbox the expansions as well, just to make sure that I'm not missing any cards. I don't think it's likely. This all seems to be very well organised. I'm expecting, because these expansions were provided with the Kickstarter, I imagine that the cards that are missing are actually in here. So we're going to find out in a moment. So let's see if we can get into this packaging very carefully. So in here we have the Icy Maze, the Swamp of Madness. The artwork is really quite nice. It's got this kind of watercolour, cartoon, comic vibe, but the kind of comics of the kind of the heydays of the fighting fantasy kind of stories back in the 80s and 90s. So it's quite nice, very evocative of those kind of choose your own adventure style novels from when I was a kid. As I suspected, the cards that were missing in the initial base set were actually in the expansion packs. And what you get in these expansions is literally just a couple extra decks of cards which contain brief instruction overview of how to set things up. And then you get the additional curse cards and the additional numerically sequenced action and adventure cards which go in the deck. So you can see here this one says 527, so this one finds its way into the core box to keep everything together and organised. So there aren't actually any missing numbers in the core set as such, it's just they've planned and designed the core box to take the additional expansion cards later down the line, which is a great idea. So I've now organised all the additional cards into the trays from the 3 expansion packs, and curiously there's quite a few cards which have the same number, and I'm not sure how that's meant to play out, whether it's meant to add variability to the game by having potentially different cards come up when you're asked to draw a particular number. So that might be a way of creating variety if you replay the game, so that you don't see the same content twice. Even though you may well see the same locations a few times, different things will happen while you're there. Now I'm speculating here, I don't know if that is indeed the case, but I imagine that's probably why they have got some cards with the same number on. Anyway, I've got in my hand the Path of Repentance. This is one of the optional things you could get during the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm just going to try and get myself into this now. It's a little bit tricky to open. There we go. And this one says, try to stand the test of time, the path will be difficult and you will need to be patient to reach its end. So this is a mini expansion containing 30 cards. So let's see what we get in here. So we get another little one of those summary sheets, which I'm just going to tuck in there for now. And an additional curse, the Path of Repentance. So I don't want to read too much about the curses just yet, in case any of you are worried about spoilers and you want to play the game for yourself. So some additional cards that need to be sorted through into their respective locations. But one of the things you start with, along with your satchel, in this one is the pocket watch. You have no idea how this beautiful pocket watch ended up in your satchel. Even more surprisingly, the minutes are ticking backwards as though counting down time. So that sounds intriguing. So I'm going to go through these. Got some more location cards to mix into the deck. Got some more cards which also need to be added in. So these will create even more duplicates and more variability in theory. So that's kind of exciting and cool. So I'm going to chuck those in a moment. Before I do that, I'm going to have a quick look at the Devourer's expansion. I'm imagining it'll be something similar with this one too. This one probably adds more difficulty, having monsters essentially chasing around. Beware the insatiable devourers, they can erupt from the ground at any moment, and once they have your scent, they will hunt you to the ends of the continent. So it's got 7 rockworm figures and some more cards to spice up the game. This one's slightly different in that it's got some more minis. So let's have a look and see what they look like. Oops. Sellotape to negotiate. So these miniatures are actually really quite cool. So there is the adult rockworm, very Cthulhu-esque, like a tentacled scaly monster, and then we've got some of the infant ones, which look like a little pod. Just about make it out there with spikes. And then you've got the juvenile ones, which are a bit bigger still. So those get added into the game, along with even more location cards, which is really cool. So we're going to get a real range of variability from these. And in the Facing the Elements expansion, this is the one that contains the weather modules. Now, I didn't bother with things like the bone dice or the notebook. I didn't really think that they would add that much to the experience. So I haven't got the entirety of this game. Plastic standees. And their signature or summary sheet of the elements and how these work. And then you've got these cardboard punch outs which allow you to create the weather effects by putting those. You can see where the hole is, where you put the plastic stand through, and that just sort of stands above the board on one of the tiles to signify that weather, I'm not sure what that is, an electrical storm perhaps, thunderstorm, looks like a tornado, some kind of blizzard, a couple of the blizzard ones actually. So I'm guessing that this can affect multiple tiles then. So it's a nice idea. Just add some more theme to the game. And again, as is the case with the other expansions, and another set of adventure cards to kind of round out the experience. So really looking forward to getting this to the table and seeing what it has to offer. It looks to be a really good game, potentially for co-op or solo play. This one I may well play solo, but I'll see if Lee is interested in it. But it looks like a lot of fun. So that is the 7th continent. I'm going to finish getting this thing tidied away, and then hopefully at some point I'll do a video review and a live play. Although at the moment I don't want to say too much more about the cards because there's a potential there for spoilers, and it would be a real shame to ruin someone else's experience of the game. But in terms of the build quality and what's in the box, it looks really impressive. I have to say I'm really delighted with the quality of the box, the sturdiness of it. Cardstock isn't bad at all. I mean, considering how many cards are in here, I wasn't expecting the cardstock to be, particularly amazing, because it would have made the price point very prohibitive. But nevertheless, they've done a pretty good job here, and even the kind of card fibers have a nice kind of patterned back to them. So even that's quite a nice little touch. All in all, really impressed with this, and can't wait to get to the table. So just for reference, this is what it all looks like once it's back in the box. You've got space for all of the bits. I've put the weather templates just there, dice, tokens for the characters if you want to use those instead of the minis. I have bothered to punch out and put the standees on. It's a shame they didn't do standees as well with the Devourers. As much as the models are the main draw in that pack, it would have been a nice touch if they provided a cardboard punch-out to go with the standees, so those who were playing with the cardboard characters, which are full artwork, could also have used those too, which would have given them consistency across all of it. The discard tower has got two sides to it, and you have to choose which of those you want to use at the beginning of the game because they produce different effects, but it's really sturdy and well made. Everything, in fact even the Kickstarter letter and all the stuff, fits comfortably back in the box, so I don't need to keep the expansion boxes, although I imagine I will do just as I'm a completionist. But it all fits back in that one nice box, except for that. But you could take it apart easily enough and stick it inside the box. There's definitely room for it. I just prefer to keep it assembled and leave it out. It's not really a big deal. I've got one of the foam things spare, but I can use that in my smash up box to keep the cards organised there, so that's useful. But it's a really nice box set, and it weighs a small ton now, comfortably, about 3 or 4 kilograms right there. But it should provide hours of really interesting, immersive gameplay. So that is the Seventh Continent, a really interesting, innovative game that kind of combines some of those old gameplay mechanics from the Choose Your Own Adventure novels with the kind of contemporary design that we've seen with games to a certain extent like Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game, and even aspects of time stories with this kind of legacy dynamic and the idea of playing through a scenario potentially only once. So these sorts of experiences are becoming more common, but Seventh Continent is still doing something quite interesting and original. So I'm quite excited to play this one. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to get to the table because it does look like quite a bit of a time investment. And if it is anything like its claimed 1,000 hour playtime to complete the full story, then I'm not sure how far I'm going to get with it. To give you an example, I've still yet to complete the first season of Pandemic Legacy. Leah and I are probably about October in the game, so we've got a few more months to play. And that's about to launch season 2 in September. So it's questionable how much of the game might actually see play, particularly as with the expansions, they all add in lots of extra curses, and with you add in the different character dynamics, you could potentially be looking at multiple potential replays of this game. But I'm not sure, given the kind of the cult of the new and the cult of Kickstarter, just how likely that is to actually happen. So when you're buying games or backing games, you have to kind of keep in mind the likelihood of actually seeing everything a game has to offer, and whether the money you're investing into it is really going to be money that you're going to see on the table. Now, this raises an interesting question. How likely is a typical player to see all the content in this box? And the short answer is probably not very. And let me elaborate on that. Certainly there'll be some die-hard fans of this game who will flock to it, play every single bit of it and love it. And it might be the only gaming experience they have over the course of the year, and probably several years to come. But those people are probably in the minority. There are very few people who buy 1 or 2 games a year. Committed hobbyist gamers will probably pick up a game every couple of months, possibly more than that. And on top of that, there are always new and exciting ideas coming out on Kickstarter, which mean that people are always flocking to the next big thing and trying to make sure that all the games that they have get some regular playtime and cycle around to the table. I mean, you can see behind me I've got a wall of games, and not all of them get to see regular play, certainly not as often as I'd like. So when you start buying these big legacy format games, it's debatable whether or not you're going to get a chance to see everything it truly has to offer. I've got time stories, I've got campaigns for that, which I've still yet to complete, Lumen Fide, Endurance, and so on. I've got still several chapters of the Dunwich Legacy of Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game, to finish. And as much as I'm enjoying all of those games, I wonder just how necessary it is to have that much content. I wonder if perhaps it could have been a case of less is more. Perhaps releasing something more aligned with the Choose Your Own Adventure books, something probably the size of this, thinking along the lines of the kind of recent boom in the escape game industry, where games can be reduced down to a single deck of cards and carried around and played through thoroughly and experienced fully in the course of, say, an afternoon or a weekend. And whilst Seven Continents certainly offers a very similar experience and lots of adventure and theme and all those wonderful things, am I likely to finish it? Or will this be one of those kind of treasured items that is simply there for being in the collection? You know, I've got games like Twilight Imperium that rarely ever see play, and they're there because they're there, they exist, and it's a case of gamers want to have them because they want to have them. And I wonder if Seventh Continent and games like it are going to be falling into that kind of similar trap. There are people already on eBay and on Facebook sales groups, you know, offering this for sale for £300-400 and getting it, which I find ridiculous, particularly as there's going to be potentially a reprint or a relaunch in August, and an opportunity therefore for new backers to get this at a far more sensible cost. I mean, this one all in was about £130, including the delivery, which was a lot of money, but I know I've got my money's worth here. I very much doubt I'm going to need any more Seventh Continent stuff, potentially ever. There's enough story, enough content, enough experience here to keep me going for quite a few years and, you know, happily enjoying it and chipping away at it. And that's basically how I intend to play it, more like an RPG campaign over a very long period of time. Potentially even coming back with the same characters and trying different curses out. But if you are someone who enjoys this kind of experience and this kind of game, from what I've seen of the quality, what I've seen so far of the rulebook, it looks very robust and it looks really interesting. I don't want to kind of make any more comments review-wise about it until I've had a chance to thoroughly play test it, and it may well be something which the GFG guys review going down the line. So here's to that. But for now, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps us to get our content out there as we continue to grow the global friendly gamers and try to kind of bring together lots of gamers from across the country and the world to create a network of friendly gamers who are happy to meet up and play games regularly in their local neighbourhoods. If you are in the Grantham area, of course, please do look up the Grantham Friendly Gamers, where it all began, and pop along to one of our meetups. We meet every third Saturday of the month, and we get regularly between 10 and 20 people turn up, which is great, and hopefully I'll get to meet you soon. But for now,